Welcome to DowerTune.com. Today we're going to take a look at another product from StarTech. This is their USB 3.0 dual 2.5-inch SATA hard drive RAID enclosure. And like other RAID controllers or RAID enclosures that StarTech makes, this basically is one that is for those small laptop-like hard drives. So let's take a look at what we get in the box. Alright, so we get the instruction manual, and here's the enclosure itself. And anything else below this? Yes, and per typical StarTech standards, you get a lot of stuff. So you have a power brick over here, which has a generic connector, and StarTech always includes various plug-ins for different regions. So you have so there's the different European ones, and this is a Hong Kong one, and US one here, as well as we got looks like a USB power cable of some kind here, and then of course USB 3 connector. So got one end for the computer and the other for the device itself. So that's what you get in the box. Lots of little things in here. Let's take a look at the enclosure itself. Alright, so it's a pretty small enclosure. Basically, you open it right up, and it's got room for the two laptop size SATA drives. They looks like they mount in here, and the enclosure goes over and closes up. And so in the back we see you've got the power connector here. Looks like for the power, and then you have your USB 3 and on-off switch, and it's got a fan back here. You got 3 LEDs for power and the 2 hard drives. So alright, so let's take a look at putting some discs in it and see what that's like. Alright, so I have everything unboxed and set up here. I have these two older laptop drives. These are some 320 gigabyte Western Digital drives that came out of some of my laptops. They're kind of lying around, not doing a whole lot. So I figure, why not? I'll put it into this guy. Now, one thing after I got everything out of the box, things I also found were a bag of screws, which is necessary to keep this together and put the drives in. And it was interesting. I realized that there is a power brick, but there's also this USB to power adapter, so it's kind of nice. So you can actually have this option if to hook it up to a computer, not have to worry about this thing, or you can have this thing, which is kind of cool. So let's go ahead and look at putting the discs in. Now, like a lot of the other products that come out from StarTech, one of the things that it has is this, you notice this little green button over here and these switches over here. Well, according to this, by default, the enclosure comes in JBOD mode, just a bunch of discs. And so you'll have to make sure you decide to configure it the way that you want to use it. And according to the manual here, there is a set of jumper settings for how to configure it. So what I want to do, I'm going to do a RAID 1, and so switch 1 on and switch 2 off. So it's basically 1 on is down. So there it is. So now we're going to put the discs in. Alright. Slide it in, attaches like so. This one, same deal. Kind of slides in and sits in. Now, they're actually in, but obviously you see that it's lined up so that you can put the screws in to really secure it down, which I'm going to do now. Now there's a series of silver and black screws. The black screws are going to be for the enclosure itself. And if I get the screws out of the bag, get them all out of there, we'll go ahead and basically put them on. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video real quick so you don't need to see me put screws on, and we'll continue after I'm done. Okay, so I have the hard drives secured in there, 4 screws on each side. So it's pretty secure now. Alright, so what we have to do now is we need to, basically after the jumpers have been set to the 1 on and 2 off for RAID 1, which basically means that these discs will be duplicated. I have to hold this green button down while powering it on so that it sets the RAID. So that's plugged in. Okay, so hold this button down while toggling the switch. And alright, so hold it down and wait till this begins to blink and this becomes green, and now we're set. So the RAID has been configured. Just a side note, in case you might not realize it, when you set the RAID, these disks are going to be wiped. So don't expect to have existing items available for you. So this is going to be a clean slate. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video while I screw this into the chassis here. Turn this off first, yank the power. So note about the screws here, they actually gave you 5, so you got some extras on the side in case you lose them, because these are small screws and they could easily be lost. Alright, so I'm going to put this together and we'll put it into a computer and let's see what it's like. Okay, so I have my Surface Pro 3 over here turned on, and we have the enclosure. So let's plug it in and get some power going to it, and let's try it out. So plug the power in there. We will turn the drives on. I see the great light goes red for a moment, and okay, we're good. So let's plug it into the computer and let's give it a go. As I get this out of the way. Okay, plug that in. Alright, so first things first, because we had just set up the RAID, the drives are completely unallocated. And if you go to Manage and go to the disk management, you'll see that the first thing that's probably going to pop up is it says you must initialize the disk before you can access it. And we'll just go ahead and use the defaults and just go ahead and do it. And you can see down here, it's disk 1 right here, 297 gigabytes unallocated. Well, it's still not really usable because it's unallocated. So first thing we're going to do is we'll right click, we're going to do a new simple volume, and we'll just take the defaults. I'll take the maximum size, assign to the drive letter E in here, that's fine. Now, formatting wise, if you do NTFS, there's a good chance you're not going to be able to use it on a Mac. So I'll do exFAT so that I can use it on my Mac as well. And we'll call this StarTech S252BU33R. And finish that off. Alright, so there, let's drive letter E, ready to go. So, as you can see, it's functional. It sees it as one disk, because I have set it as a mirrored drive, so I have these old 320s running as a mirror. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some files on here, and we'll basically start pulling disks out and see what happens. So I copied some movie files. I've bought some videos from Paris Christo, who's an artist, and so I got a bunch of movie files here we're playing, as he kind of teaches how to draw. So well, so they're playing fine. As you can see, while it's working, it's playing. The drive LEDs might blink in different various ways here. Let me try to skip. So we see that the files are there. So let's start sabotaging things. We'll pull one of the drives and see how this thing behaves. So I'm going to stop it for a moment, and I will take the drives out of the enclosure here. And I unloosened the top drive here. I'm going to yank it out. I'll pull it out. Come on, there we go. Get it out. So technically speaking then, looks like drive 1 failed. So we're going to put this back in. Oh, you don't really need to. I'm going to put it back in anyway. And I'll put it in the right side. Alright, so let's turn this on. Let's see what happens. I didn't plug it in yet, but we see that got a red light. So looks like we have a drive failure. Let's plug it back into the computer system. Alright, so there. So we got the bottom light is blinking. And so we can see that the files are still show up. I can start playing a movie here. So everything still works. So my files are still available to me, even though I have one drive failure. So now the question is, what happens if I put the drive back in? And will it start rebuilding? So let's eject this and turn it off. Let's see, let's do an ejection here. Eject the disk. Oh, this is currently in use. Why is it currently in use? Try that again. Okay. Oh, sorry. You know, the red light actually goes on because it's not hooked up to anything. I apologize. That's something that I forgot was going on. So, all right, I'm gonna turn this off and put the drive back in. Okay. All right, snaps right back in. I won't screw it in for now. Let's put this in. Let's turn this on. All right, so with the drive lights showing that. Okay. Okay, something you see now that's happening is you notice how the drive lights are blinking in a way. So we have the disk 1, which I actually took out, is now flashing regularly. And of course the second disk is being accessed quite a bit. So what's happening here with like some of the other StarTech RAID devices I've seen is that what's happening now is rebuilding. So it's going to copy everything that was on the second disk to the first disk because it noticed that the first disk was missing. So now it's doing a rebuild process. So this process can take a little while, and well, just grind away for a while, and when it's done, it should all be back to normal. So we'll come back to this in a moment. What I want to mention is that I unmounted or ejected the disk from the computer so I can unplug it from the back, and so it's no longer plugged to the computer. But you see the the power light is red, but the drive is still working. So the nice thing is that it's doing it on its own. You don't have to be hooked up to the computer. So I just took it off, and we'll let this sit on the side and grind away for a while, and we'll come back to it once it's done. All right, so now the drive is ready again. So it took about, I want to say at least 2 hours. I had to let it go. I timed it for a while, for about an hour, and I sort of gave up because it was still blinking and doing its thing. So I'm going to guess it probably took at least 2 hours to basically restore itself onto the first drive. Once it was done, the two LEDs would actually blink in unison. And that's something I didn't show here because I actually ended up moving the hardware around. But once you turned it off, turn it back on, it looks like this now. So let's hook it up back to the machine, to the Surface Pro 3 here, and see what happens. Okay, so see the LEDs all look normal. The drive popped right open. I can go ahead and play some movies again. Everything seems to be working properly. So great, so everything's fine now. So what I'm going to do now is we'll do a final comparison and wrap up this video. Wrap this up by just taking a comparison look at some of the RAID enclosures I do have. Here's my Western Digital MyBook Duo, 2 drives, standard 3.5-inch drives. Here's the StarTech one over here, and obviously the same type of thing, 2 drives. Both are pretty comparable in capabilities as far as basically offering redundancy and stuff. And here's the 2.5-inch enclosure. So as you can see, quite a bit smaller. Now, obviously the sacrifice going a 2.5-inch is you're not going to be able to get drives at least cost effectively as large as this one. I have 2 3-terabyte ones in here. I have 2 2-terabyte ones in this one, and there's a bit of portability obviously with something this small, and you can get larger drives like 1 terabyte. I think they might have 2 terabyte ones, but they're going to be a lot more expensive than say 2 terabyte drives that are in here. They were about $100 per disk. For the same type of thing here, it'd be quite a bit more. Obviously, what you trade off is just the portability. This is something that's pretty small in comparison. 2 drives in a redundant setup versus something like this, a little bit harder to carry around. So it's a really cool little enclosure. I mean, it's just a nifty thing to be able to have 2 laptop hard drives in here. If I want to nitpick about one of the cons is, the documentation was a bit poor about what the LEDs do. They told you about the RAID modes. The other thing is just that getting to the drives is relatively easy here. I pop this off, I can get to the drives. This one, I can pop this, get to the drives. This one, I have to take the screws off. So I wish it was a little bit more accessible without having to play around with a screwdriver. So there you have it. A look at StarTech's 2.5-inch RAID enclosure. If you have any questions about this or something I did not answer or
something you want to see me do with it, please let me know. Thanks for watching.